Good morning. Welcome to Optimal Frequency. I'm Grant. I talk to spirits here at my house using sources of white noise. Then I use an artificial intelligence called CRISP to filter out that white noise and leave behind only the spirit responses. The answers I get are pretty awesome. Today on Optimal Frequency, I am doing a mystery that was presented to me from a Reddit user, MoodyCatLady93. And the mystery is the disappearance of Brian Shaffer. I know nothing about this case. I just went over, clicked on something here, read one paragraph, and I thought, this sounds really interesting. Stay tuned. I really like this sugar bowl. I'm going back for the sugar. Going for that sweetness. I just seem to get really, I don't know, maybe it's in my head. Like I'm hearing voices or something. There we go. Getting a rattle out of it. So I'm looking into the mystery of Brian Shaffer today. Earlier, I asked if possibly Brian Shaffer's parents, who are deceased, if they want to come through and talk about this, that would be great if you can and if you want to. Because I don't know if Brian Shaffer is deceased, I've opened up the possibility that if he wants to come in and speak about this as well, he's welcome to. And I don't know, we're going to try and find out if he's still alive or what happened. So I have a bunch of questions here for you. Brian Schaefer was an American medical student at Ohio State University. On the night of March 31st, 2006, Schaefer went out with friends to celebrate the beginning of spring break. Later, he was separated from them, and they assumed he had gone home. However, a security camera near the entrance to a Columbus bar recorded him briefly talking to two women just before 2 a.m., April 1st, and then apparently re-entering the bar without any evidence of him leaving the area. Schaefer has not been seen or heard from since. The case has received national media attention. Schaefer's disappearance has been especially puzzling to investigators since there was no other publicly accessible entrance or exit to the bar at that time. Columbus police have several theories about what happened. Some interest and suspicion has been directed at a friend of Schaefer's who accompanied him that night but who has refused to take lie detector tests regarding the incident. While foul play has been suspected, including the possible involvement of the purported Smiley face serial killer, it has also been speculated that he might be alive and living somewhere else under a new identity. What happened to Brian Schaefer on the night he went missing? Okay, so I'm analyzing what I've gathered up at the sink. I'm hearing names in here. I'm hearing so-and-so killed him. So-and-so had to get out the shovel. Her hands are covered in blood. It was a freak accident. I'm going to play this whole thing for you. It's quite lengthy. There's snippets all throughout it. I asked them a question, what happened to him that night. I left them, 15 seconds or whatever. And the amount of information in here is just crazy. Now, could I be hearing things? You betcha. That's always the case, and I am the first guy to say you might hear something different than me. Okay? I have literally listened to this 40 times. This is what I'm hearing. Whether it's pertinent to the case or not, I don't know. I went to look up the name that I'm hearing, And apparently there might be a name that's associated with him that matches that, but I can't research it because for whatever reason, I don't know why, Reddit is offline, and that's where this article is that I want to look at. And I mean, Reddit hasn't been down for weeks, but it is right now. So whether I come back to this or not depends on whether this site comes back up today. What happened to Brian Shaffer on the night he went missing? The smiley face murder theory is a theory advanced by retired New York City detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte and Dr. Lee Gilbertson, a criminal justice professor and gang expert. They allege that a number of young men found dead in bodies of water across several Midwestern American states from the late 1990s to 2010s did not accidentally drown, as concluded by law enforcement agencies, but were victims of a serial killer or killers. The term smiley face became connected to the alleged murders when it was made public that the police had discovered graffiti depicting a smiley face near locations where they think the killer dumped the bodies in at least a dozen of the cases. Is there a smiley-faced killer or killers? Is that a real thing? Was Brian Shaffer a victim of the smiley-faced killer? When someone like Randy Schaefer dies, which was Brian's father, is it still important to Randy that we solve the mystery of his missing son? Police began their search for Schaefer at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, the bar where he had last been seen. Since the area around South Campus Gateway was somewhat blighted with a high crime rate, the bar had installed security cameras. The police reviewed the footage to no end. Since Columbus has the most security cameras of any city in Ohio, more than Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Toledo combined, officers next looked to the footage from other bars to see if the cameras there could explain how Schaefer had left the Ugly Tuna Saloona. However, footage from cameras at 3 other nearby bars showed no trace of him. After searching miles away from the Ugly Tuna Saloona in every direction, police began to consider other possibilities besides an accident or foul play. Since Schaefer's mother had recently died, it was speculated he had gone away temporarily to grieve in solitude. Yet his disappearance proved permanent. No evident reasons appeared for him voluntarily disappearing. Randy Schaefer, who had recently suffered the death of his wife, continued the search for his son on his own. A psychic he consulted told him Schaefer's body was in water near a bridge pier. He and Derek, Brian's younger brother, along with some other citizens who had become interested in the case, bought waders and spent much of their free time along the river which flows through Columbus adjacent to the OSU campus, searching in vain for the body near bridges. Who killed Brian Shaffer? Why was he killed? Will Brian's remains ever be located? In September 2008, during a heavy windstorm, Randy Schaefer was out in the yard of his Baltimore home clearing debris. A branch blew off from a nearby tree and fatally struck him. Neighbors found his body the next morning and called police. After his obituary ran online, a condolence book was posted. One of the signatures in it said, "To Dad, love Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands." This suggested Brian might have left Columbus for a new life elsewhere. However, upon further investigation, the note was found to have been posted from a computer accessible to the public in Franklin County. It was determined to be a hoax. Mr. Schaefer, are you now with your wife and your son in heaven? Mr. Schaefer, are you now with your wife and your son in heaven? Mr. Schaefer, are you now with your wife and your son in heaven? Mr. Schaefer, are you now with your wife and your son in heaven? Brian, if you are there, do you want to say anything about this incident? Brian, if you were murdered, do you feel that the person that did that to you, should they be brought to justice? All right, well, I'd like to thank you, spirits, for coming through and answering my questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the Schaefer family if they came through. Love, peace, joy, and adventure to all of you. God bless.